As we've been reporting, voting is expected to resume any moment in the Sistine Chapel to choose a new pope. There are hopes we could see white smoke at some point today. I want to bring in John Allen. He's a CBS News contributor and the editor of Crux, which is an outlet that covers the Vatican and the Catholic Church. John, how surprised are you that voting is moving? Would you call it fairly quick this morning, or perhaps not?
Hi, Vlad. Well, certainly after last night, when it took us 3 hours to get from the extra omnes, that is the order for everyone to get out of the Sistine Chapel, to the black smoke. By that standard, the votes we had this morning were remarkably rapid. But I think two things changed. One, they had to listen to a meditation last night from a preacher who gave them a kind of final spiritual reflection that took about 45 minutes. And then they had to work out the kinks of the system. They obviously got that done, and this morning were able to move more expeditiously. So we're expecting things this afternoon should more or less hold to form, which means that in something like an hour, hour and a half from now, we'll have our first indication of whether or not they've elected a pope on that fourth ballot. If not, then all eyes will be on Rome at about 7 or 7:30 local, when we'll definitely get smoke. White or black, Vlad? We don't know.
All right. So, John, just remind our viewers right now, who are the top contenders? We talked about it a little bit last week, but I wonder if the racing, the race to the top of the pyramid, so to speak, has changed. Or are we still looking at, for example, Cardinal Tagle from the Philippines as a top contender?
Well, look, I think, Vlad, first of all, let us remind our viewers that neither you or I are inside the Sistine Chapel. So what we're engaged in here is speculation rather than hard information. But what I can certainly confirm is that in the run-up to the conclave, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, he's known by everybody by his nickname Chito, from the Philippines, was a top contender. Probably the top contender was Italian Cardinal Pietro Parolin, who was Pope Francis's Secretary of State for 12 years. And the expectation was these early ballots. Remember, we've been through 3 ballots so far. This afternoon we'll get 4, and if necessary, 5. They're shaping up as a yes or no to those top contenders. Now, if neither of those two men is able to cross that magic 2/3 threshold, 89 votes out of the 133 cardinals in the Sistine Chapel, then things, Vlad, are going to get a lot more interesting, because the cardinals are going to have to start turning to some of the B-list contenders, the guys who were considered possible but more long shots. And if that's the case, Vlad, you and I may be talking about this for a couple days yet to come.
It just took 2 days, as you remember, John, for voting for Francis, who was named, obviously, 12 years ago. I heard Nora O'Donnell this morning on our show. We were talking with Nora. She said she had a feeling, and it's a feeling that some people may have, that we would perhaps see white smoke by the end of the day today. I sort of wondered if just the fact that there are so many new cardinals that were appointed by Pope Francis, many of whom have not yet met each other, that not to suggest that they need days and days and days to get to know who the top contenders are, but maybe that it would be a little longer given how many new cardinals are part of conclave this year. What do you think?
Yeah, well, look, I think it could break either way. I think in many ways, those of us who have covered conclaves before, that is, the conclave of 2005 that elected Pope Benedict in just 4 ballots, and then the conclave of 2013 that elected Pope Francis in 5, both on the afternoon of the second day. In other words, where we are right now, I think we're all conditioned to expect it to happen that quickly. But, you know, if you leaf through the history of conclaves in the 20th century, it hasn't always happened that fast. In 1922, it took 14 ballots. So, you know, I mean, I think most of these cardinals would agree. The most important thing is getting this right rather than getting it fast. Now, that said, I don't think the Cardinals want this to take too long either, because they don't want to project an image of division and disunity to the world. They want to project the image that they are all together and that they are reaching consensus in a kind of brotherly exercise. So you've got competing pressures, cardinals who don't know one another, a proliferation of possible candidates, but at the same time, this strong desire to reach consensus as quickly as possible. And, Vlad, we're watching these two forces collide in real time today.
Really, we really are. John Allen, always great to have your perspective, my friend. Thank you very much.